Hi, Brian.
Hello, how are you?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm well. It's great to see you. Uh, are we live now or are we going to start in just a moment?
Yes, we are live already.
Perfect. Well, I'm
Yep.
looking forward to talking markets with you. I hope you've been following the markets because it's been a pretty wild ride.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. It's pretty
lately we're
well.
seeing another altcoin surge here. XRP and Chainlink are doing well, notably Cardano. So there's a lot we can cover.
Okay. Yep, yep. Let me just do a small introduction for the audience. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Welcome, everyone. Today is 8th of August, 2025. I am Nick from EquitiesTracker, and I will be speaking with Brian from Santiment about the latest crypto updates and news. Let's proceed, Brian.
Looking forward to chatting. Thank you, Nick. Okay. So, for starters, I've been looking at some of the trends in terms of long term topics, and several are standing out to me. We're seeing a rising level of Trump with some of his latest tariff announcements. Semiconductors seeing 100% tariffs. That's caught people's eye. We see ETFs starting to gain a lot of traction, the highest level since late June, early July. Real world assets had a big burst. This is likely due to one or two big surges. Um, AI agents, on the other hand, seeing less and less discussion. DeSci seeing a couple huge spikes as of late. These are all just in the last couple of days here. Meme coins are even getting a bit of a jump. Normally, that's not a great sign. Um, Meme coins and the social volume going up for them often equates to a big uh, FOMO spike or a lot of people getting greedy about assets. Altcoin seasons, on the other hand, not so much. People aren't that interested yet. So if both meme coins and alt season are up at the same time, that would be a caution flag. Um, but right now, it's kind of a mix. You know, a lot of real news is bleeding into crypto, as has been the case throughout 2025, really, ever since Trump was elected all the way back in November. There's been a much bigger spotlight on anything happening in the US, as well as a lot more global economic factors that are impacting the markets. And I'm curious, have you been seeing any certain topics that we could potentially look up?
So far for outside is usually we just go through the four main coins that we usually talk about because the people here they are not so broad that they understand too much about uh, the deeper stuff of cryptocurrency. And the latest update we had for the audience here is more towards like Trump has been more focusing. Trump has been passed the law on Genius Act, and
Yep.
probably the slapping tariff, and Malaysia is could be one of the one that get hit pretty hard. So I think their audience here will be more interested in uh, seeing the why how had Trump affected Bitcoin or Ethereum. What is Genius Act? What Genius Act do, and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, so far, even though it's passed, there has not been that much discussion compared to what we saw in mid July, which is quite interesting. Mid June as well, and even mid May. These are the big spikes we saw. And they didn't have too big of an impact on markets. I think it's more coincidence that we've fallen ever since then. And obviously, we've rebounded a bit since with a few tiny social volume bumps, but not much.
Yeah.
In terms of Trump in general, you know, if we just take a look at Trump with the price of Bitcoin overlaid, um, you know, he does have a pretty dramatic impact on direction shifts. Anytime there's a policy change, some huge news, even going back to last year um, with the assassination attempt, you'll notice there was a big jump in social volume. That's because we got greater and greater. platforms that we're tracking a lot more. So it's easier if we just go something like April 2024 to April 2025. And that should give us a pretty good idea. Yeah, so you can see here, this was when he was inaugurated, and that was the top for all of crypto. So you can clearly see how big of a deal he is when it comes to anything to do. This was when he was first elected, mind you. So clearly he jumped up. And it's a little different when we just look at the overall mentions of Trump. So this was actually, yeah, it's about the same. Trump coin and then overall Trump, they're going hand in hand. So not much of a difference there. But in terms of Bitcoin, several things we're looking at. I noticed with the title, you were talking about some whales loading up, and that still seems to be the case. They've cooled off a little bit since mid-July, but it's not too bad of a drop. Overall, we've just seen them climb and climb pretty much since mid-March. Even when we had the tariff announcements and prices really bottomed out, got to the mid 70Ks, whales weren't selling here. They continued to rise. We saw the big jump here. That was a good sign. Another big jump here as we saw some all-time high prices. And then the slight fade in terms of overall holdings for 10 to 10K BTC wallets. So I think this is a pretty good sign that nobody's going anywhere in terms of the biggest key stakeholders that impact the rest of the markets.
Why for the title? Why I put it that way is because in the past month we received a lot of alert from whales, especially old wallets that started moving coins. Either selling in the market or either transferring to somewhere else. So when we hear things like that, and sometimes people get curious, and what would that signify?
So just so I can understand the question, you're asking about whales and when people get curious about whales?
Yeah, I mean, like when whales started moving large portion of cryptocurrencies to different wallets, because the past month I think there was at least 2 or 3 times that whales has moved large amount, and there was a lot of activities on X showing that the whales are starting to mobilize away.
Yeah, just the overall discussion regarding whales and the interest from the crowd.
Yeah.
So let's see what shows up here. Let's try switching that. This should work. Oh, let's just try. There's an error here. That's strange. Look at just whales by themselves. Bitcoin. Give it just a moment. Interesting. I'll give it a quick refresh to see what might be going on here. There we go.
Oops.
It's so strange. It doesn't seem to like this search for whatever reason. I apologize.
It's all right.
Giving it one last try. Yeah. Okay. Well, I do know, if I go to trending stories here, we've seen whales showing up in the top 10 several times over the past week. So we can see some of the biggest topics that have gained a lot of traction and interest over the past couple of weeks, or past 24 hours in this case, but you can go back the previous day. Whales drive troll surge, for example. That was the #1 topic on Monday or your Tuesday. And then if we look at today, Trump allows alternative 401ks. So this was a big deal for people's retirements and being able to invest in cryptocurrency to put in their 401ks. ChatGPT 5 coming out, Ripple expanding with RLUSD. Chainlink's reserve growth is quite interesting. Ibiza's final USDT, quite a bit here that we could go through. I'm certainly very interested to see how ChatGPT and the new GPT-5 starts to integrate with crypto and changes things. It sparks debate as Elon Musk praises OpenAI's dominance, while some users note Grok 4 heavy outperforms GPT-5 on key benchmarks. So there's definitely a bit of an arms race between the top AI platforms out there. I've also noticed Chainlink. So I actually put this out just a few hours ago. Key stakeholders for Chainlink. We talked about some of the big accumulators for different coins, and Chainlink has been one that's seeing its key stakeholder tier, which has consistently been 100K to 1 million link wallets. You can see how much they go up and down with the price of Chainlink, and they've been on a big surge. 27 more of these wallets since the start of August. That's a little over a 4% gain.
Wow.
0.67% more of the entire supply has been accumulated them since the start of August. This is a lot of accumulation in a short period of time for a very important tier of whales. So they clearly are responding positively to the reserve news.
Yeah, this is very interesting, because from the uh, supply distribution, I noticed that retails are starting to come in, the smaller wallets for Bitcoin. So, and whales are collecting at the same time. So I kind of one. Sometimes people wonder is is the whales having FOMO as well?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they can't. The retailers and the whales can't both accumulate from the same collection and open coins that are available. So usually, if retailers are selling, it's because the whales are buying, and if the whales are buying, the retailers are selling. What a wild card factor is the total amount of holders. So just the overall amount of wallets that are not empty. So non-empty wallets that have at least a fraction of a Satoshi in them. That's been going up very rapidly, especially right here around the 5th of August. And that sparked a little bit of a FOMO jump. Usually these don't last. We actually see retailers, which most of this line is made up of, going up higher when prices tend to go down shortly after. So this isn't exactly the most bullish sign. It isn't an inversion either. I mean, there's plenty of factors that we can look at here besides total holders, but I'm a little concerned by the amount of new money that's coming in that are anticipating 120K again. We may have to wait a little bit longer if retailers can't contain themselves.
All right.
You can also see just the overall level of social dominance for Bitcoin. It's clearly been a lot higher since really mid-July and gone down a little bit since, but I'll just close that and show it'll be easier to look at it this way. You can see how much lower it was throughout the beginning of the year. And then when it really got to this all-time high level around mid-July, that's when we started to see just a huge portion of the overall conversations dedicated to Bitcoin.
Does that because is it because because Trump has put a lot of focus onto cryptocurrency, so the bigger players are actually more looking into Bitcoin, and everyone starts discussing about it?
I think so. I think that has a lot to do with it. There's also just a lot of eyes that are still on that 123K or 123.1K all-time high. And with the price still being within reach of that, a lot of people are focusing on when it'll get back to that all-time high level, not just so people can make more in their Bitcoin wallets, but altcoins will then go on a run. And we're seeing a lot of altcoins going on mini runs, like we saw with XRP and Chainlink and Cardano to a certain extent. I had a big XRP insight as well that I want to show you.
Yep.
So they had a big on-chain activity spike. You can see in pink, that's the transaction volume, and in green, that's circulation. And
Wow.
generally, when you see these big on-chain surges like we saw here, big jump right there, followed by a little bit of a decline, and then this one led to a huge jump. I'm not saying this was the primary reason, but usually we'll see this as a primary direction indicator. So if
Mm.
prices are going down and you see a big spike, good sign that we're going to rebound. And the latest one over here, we had 2.1 billion XRP coins in terms of transaction volume in one day, and 1.12 billion circulation, meaning the amount of coins that moved at least once in one day. They spiked and prices went up about 10.1% since this exact red candle happened. So clearly there was some dip buying going on. I think this is a great signal for those who follow on-chain metrics and want to take advantage of some key spots where you might suddenly see a big turnaround.
Does this metric only apply to XRP in this sense?
No, it's definitely helpful to look at Bitcoin as well. And you can find several instances where on-chain metrics showed turnarounds. You can see transaction volume here was related to a lot of FOMO, and that led to a top.
Yep.
Here, there's a big, a ton of people selling, like panic selling as it was falling, and that led to a bit of a jump. Even this is a bit of a spike in transaction volume right at the bottom, and that led to a rebound. This is daily active addresses, circulation, network growth. Generally, you want to see like gradual climbing network growth. If there's a sudden network growth spike, it's usually related to FOMO. And then MVRV is the other one that I wanted to pay attention to. And I'll show some of the other top altcoins as well. But for Bitcoin, it just started to crawl back into positive territory, just barely. So it's around break even. And then the long-term MVRV is about plus 20%. So
Yep.
a little bit high. We'd like to see this fall down a little more toward neutral territory for both. But there's still some opportunity for prices to climb higher because short-term MVRV is very neutral right now.
Oh, all right. The and for Ethereum, I
Yeah.
saw that there is spike in I think is it transaction volume or network growth? I think last week that
Uh-huh.
it spiked to about 800,000 from
Yeah,
500.
this huge spike here, we talk about utility being a direction indicator.
Yep.
So if I hide the other ones and just look at daily active addresses, you can see how this led to a drop right afterwards. So you
Oh,
don't really want to see these. Here it was more on a drop, and then you see the big spike, and that led to a rise. So pay attention this one another time where you see a big jump as prices are going down around tariff time as everyone's panic selling, and that ended up being the perfect time to buy. So pay
oh.
attention to what direction prices are going when you see these spikes, and you'll very often be on the right end of a sudden trend reversal.
So usually when you see a network growth spurt like that, it's more towards FOMO.
I would say it's 50-50. I mean, it really depends. I think the spikes tend to happen a little more when there's FOMO compared to when there's FUD. It depends how much the asset is branching out compared to the rest of crypto. So like all of crypto is dropping here. So there were a lot of different assets that saw a big jump in daily active addresses as the prices were falling here. But Ethereum definitely was on its own when it saw this huge daily active address spike here.
Yep. And that leads to the fall up right after. Yeah.
Exactly. And it was a short-term one because daily active addresses went back down to normal quickly. But if it stays high, that could be a sign that we would drop even more and more and more.
All right.
And as for MVRV, Ethereum does look a little more dangerous. The short term is at about plus 9.5, and then long term is way up at about plus 39%. These are very large average returns, and overall point to quite a bit of high profits across the entire network. So I'd be a little careful about that.
Yep. For Ethereum, because there's a lot of news coming out that some of the companies are buying into Ethereum, especially, and some of the prominent figures start talking about the Ethereum might have Wall Street might want to back Ethereum. So will that affect Ethereum in some way?
Yeah, I think that's possible. I mean, when a lot of new companies jump in and institutional money really starts to contribute to a trend, it can change a lot of things. Sometimes they can actually cause a short-term top, but you can see the whales and how much more active they've been over the last 3 weeks or so. And that's kind of been the norm ever since. These are just the overall amount of transactions that are worth at least $100,000. And this is $1 million. So you can see how much it really jumped up here. This was right before the top, but it's maintained itself. So institutionals have become kind of a regular player in Ethereum right now. And that's why there's maybe a little more volatility than usual. And you can especially see the number of wallets that hold between 10,000 to 100,000 Ethereum. And it's just gone off just over the last month or so. 12.8% more of these wallets compared to before that. That's a massive jump. Same with the percent of supply. They've added almost 1% of the entire supply to their wallets. And in terms of overall coins, they've added about 1.73 million more Ethereum, which is a 6.5% jump.
So it's essentially saying that crypto institutions are starting to pour in money to accumulate accumulate Ethereum.
Yeah, it seems that way.
But retail doesn't seem to be too interested in Ethereum, right?
Yeah, it depends. So if I look at the wallets holding 0.1 Ethereum or less, they were going up pretty consistently, but they really started to take profit at the beginning of the month. And when they take profit, that's often a buy signal. So you can see right when they started taking profit, you can see how perfect this is. They start to go down in terms of their holdings. And right when they started to go down, the price has gone up almost 15%.
Okay.
So they kind of work as an inverted signal in a way.
Wow, that's surprising. I always have this idea that retailers are the one pushing the price.
Agreed. It's the other way around. They're a good counter signal. Look at how much they dumped right here, right at the bottom when it hit about 1,400 on April 8th. So they dumped right here, and that ended up being the perfect time to buy. And they were kind of going up and down a little bit here. And it wasn't until they started to accumulate consistently about a month later that you started to see Ethereum range again. But while they were in dump mode, from here to here, oops, let me get that other one. You can see that this ended up being the perfect time to get back in, especially right here. It just went on a giant run. And then, of course, they took profit one more time, and then they finally started to accumulate.
Oh. This measures the wallets between 0 and 0.1.
Exactly.
So very small wallets.
Yep.
Okay. For I think I saw Maxim's video. I think last 2 weeks ago or so. He was saying that Santiment has tried to incorporate Solana onto the
platform. We should be having some more Solana metrics soon. We do have its network growth and social volume and daily active addresses now, which is awesome.
Nice.
So I can add network growth as well. So you can see we now have the amount of active addresses and amount of new wallets being created, which is amazing.
Nice.
And then you'll notice we have some funding rate data, which is great. So you can see when people short, that tends to be a bottom. When they long a lot, like here, that tends to be a top.
Wow.
And then we have a bunch of social metrics down here. And Solana does tend to have a lot of bot action, which makes it a little tough to analyze sometimes. But
Yep.
overall, you can see when the social dominance goes through major FOMO waves, and how it sometimes has an effect on price. I don't know if it's the strongest signal. Otherwise, I would analyze this further.
At this moment, Solana is pretty tame. Yeah, it
Yeah,
doesn't seem to move anywhere.
sitting at about 174, 175, but many long-term waiters are hoping we can rebound back above 200 very soon.
Yep. I was looking at the when Bitcoin started moving to all-time highs together with Ethereum's after. I was kind of expecting Solana to go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. I
Yeah.
think a lot of retailers were too, and
Yeah.
perhaps that was why it didn't, because retail was getting a little overeager.
What about can we take a look at Litecoin? Since
Sure.
I think last week May Pharma just invested 100 million into Litecoin.
Yeah, I can see the transaction volume climbing higher and higher here. This was actually the highest level we saw all year long, 12.93 billion in one day of transaction volume dollars in Litecoin. So that was massive. That was back on Sunday and Monday. Active addresses have been pretty neutral. Bless you. 30-day and 365-day, they're a little bit dangerous right now. So it might be advisable to be a little cautious until this comes down a little more. Doesn't mean that the price has to drop, just that the average wallets need to neutralize a bit.
So it wouldn't be a very good time for long entry at the moment. A bit risky.
More risky than usual, but we'll never straight up say it's a bad time, just that it's tougher to make profit when so many others are already in profit at this time.
Yep, it makes
Because you're
sense.
playing a zero-sum game and you have to jump in while everyone else is already celebrating their profits. And that's a
Yep.
difficult task.
Yep.
You can see the retail really has jumped up a lot. I'll even go back to a full year. Yeah, they go up pretty consistently.
Okay.
So 0 to
As you,
0.1, Litecoin have been holding more and more as time has gone on.
that's interesting.
Yeah, and that's, wow, big social dominant spike here too. That was when we saw that huge transaction volume spike. So clearly people were talking about it quite a bit. And it may have had something to do with the fact that the price jumped about 13.5% over these 3 days or so. So people were talking about it more. So it had a mild decoupling there. RSI is a little on the high side, by the way, for you TA traders watching. And total amount of holders is also still pretty high, even though it's gone up or gone down just a bit in the past week.
Wow, Litecoin seem to uh, bring in a lot of attention.
Big time. Yeah, I think especially at the beginning of the week, it was getting quite a bit of discussion compared to how much it usually gets, because it's a bit of an older OG coin overall.
Yep.
But that's all I got for today, Nick.
Yep.
I think overall we're watching a bit of a mixed split, but I think the future still looks very bright with institutionals coming in and
Yep.
with the key stakeholders not going anywhere. They're still staying pretty strong with their holdings and believe that their investments are safe. And that's usually a good sign for the rest of us.
Yep. Yep. Just one last question. Yeah. Ethereum's 10th birthday is last week. Yeah. Is there any is there any impact on the market?
I don't know. I mean, if anything, it's probably a slight positive impact. Maybe more of a long-term one than a short-term one. You know, you can probably invest
Yep.
with a little more confidence, knowing there's a lot of key stakeholders that
That
are,
makes sense.
yeah, feeling confident. But if you're a swing trader, try not to get overly anxious when it comes to these types of news. Think of it more as a long-term, set it and forget it type of move.
Yep. Understand. I think that will be good news for long-term investors.
Absolutely.
So I think that's all. That's everything I have for you today as well. Thank
No,
you
it was
so
a
much,
pleasure
Brian.
as always, Nick. Thank you for the great discussion. And thank you to everyone who's watching from both your channel and mine. And I'm looking forward to our next chat so we can see how crypto's changed going
Yep.
into the fall.
Yep. And for next month, if you're available on a Thursday, I think Andrew will be available too.
Yeah, I'm good either way. I love talking to you both, and you both have excellent analysis and great questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you, Nick. You take care
All
of
right.
yourself. Bye, everybody.
Bye. See you.